The elevator wasn't taking me down, it was taking me back. I stayed too long at the office that night, the kind of late that makes the air itself heavy, where silence sits between the cubicles like a fog. Everyone else had gone home hours ago, and the tower felt hollow, as if it were built only for me. My desk lamp was the last light in the sea of glass and plastic. I closed my laptop, rubbed my eyes, and noticed how dark the windows looked. Midnight had slipped past without me realizing. The streets below were empty, no headlights moving, no neon signs buzzing. Even the city seemed asleep. I told myself I'd just pack up and take the elevator down. It was easier than walking 21 flights of stairs with my bag and files. I liked efficiency. I always had. The elevator lobby was colder than the office. The lights hummed above me, flickering slightly. I pressed the button. A hollow ding echoed through the corridor, and the doors opened. Inside, the car smelled faintly metallic, the way old coins do when you've held them too long. I stepped in, pressed lobby, and leaned against the mirrored wall. The descent began with a low vibration, the familiar hum of the motor carrying me downward. I closed my eyes. That's when the lights flickered again. Then everything went black. The elevator shuddered, stopped. For a moment there was only silence and the distant groan of the cables above. My heart kicked against my ribs. Then, movement. The car jerked violently and began moving again. But I hadn't pressed anything. The floor indicator lit up faintly, glowing red. 22. But there were only 21 floors. The doors opened. A room stretched out before me. Small, familiar. I froze. It was my childhood bedroom. The peeling wallpaper. The narrow bed with the blue dinosaur blanket. The old desk where I once stacked my comic books. Even the creak of the floorboards seemed right when I stepped closer. I whispered aloud, "This isn't real." The air smelled of dust and crayon wax. My throat tightened. I backed into the elevator, slammed the closed door button. The doors shut. The car moved again, smoothly this time. The display ticked downward, 20, 19, 18. Then it halted on 17. The doors slid open. Another bedroom. This one from the apartment where I lived at 16, the one with posters plastered over every wall to cover cracks in the plaster. The hum of my old desktop PC filled the space. The faint smell of instant noodles lingered, as if I had just left the room minutes ago. I didn't step out. My finger jabbed the button for the lobby again and again. The elevator ignored me. It carried me downward, but each floor was no longer an office. Each floor became a bedroom from my past. University dorm room. The tiny rented studio with a mattress on the floor. The bedroom where I'd first kissed someone. The blinds half closed against city light. I watched them all appear like exhibits in a museum of my own life. I whispered to myself, "Why am I seeing this?" The air grew colder with every stop. My reflection in the mirrored wall looked pale, distant. My chest tightened each time the car slowed. At floor 5, the doors opened to the room I'd lived in just 3 years ago. I saw the stack of unopened bills on the nightstand, the half-finished sketch on the desk, my own handwriting scrawled across a notebook. I took a step forward. The floor creaked under my weight. Suddenly the lights inside the room flickered out, plunging it into darkness. A sound footsteps, slow, crossing the carpet toward me. I stumbled back inside the car and hit close. The doors shut just before the footsteps reached me. The elevator dropped fast. My stomach lurched. The display showed nothing now, just a red dash flickering. Then, it slowed. The doors opened. I recognized this room instantly. The one I live in now, my bed, unmade. The glass of water, on the nightstand. The faint vibration of my phone buzzing, as if receiving a message. I stood frozen. Who had put my phone there? I'd left it in my bag at my desk upstairs. The buzzing grew louder, shaking the air. My ears rang. I reached toward the nightstand. The phone lit up with a single word. "Stay." The elevator doors began to close, but something stopped them. A hand, pale, familiar, my own. I stumbled back against the mirrored wall. The reflection didn't move with me anymore. It stayed at the doors, pressing one palm against the glass, eyes dark and hollow. The reflection whispered, though its lips barely moved, "You live here now." The doors slammed shut. The car plunged downward. No numbers, no sound except the endless rush of cables. My ears popped. The air felt thin. Finally, it slowed again, but the display didn't light up. The car jerked to a stop. I waited, afraid to breathe. The doors opened. Darkness stretched before me. Not a room this time. Just a void. No floor. No ceiling. A weightless expanse. Behind me, the elevator doors creaked, beginning to shut again. I knew that if they closed, I might never see light again. I leapt forward into the dark. The sensation was not falling. It was drifting, floating between fragments of every room I'd ever lived in, suspended in the dark like lanterns. I reached toward them, but each dissolved as I touched it, slipping through my fingers. I don't remember landing. I don't remember waking. Now I sit here, in this room that feels like mine but isn't. The bed is familiar. The window shows a city I recognize, but the walls breathe faintly, as if the building itself inhales around me. I wait for the creak of the elevator doors, for the vibration that signals another descent. I don't know if I'm still in the tower, or if the tower has swallowed me whole. Either way, I'm between places now, stuck somewhere in the gap between where I was and where I thought I'd be. And the elevator is still moving. I can hear it in the walls. The television turned on by itself, showing me inside my own motel room. I pulled into the motel lot a little after midnight, the hum of the car engine cutting through the quiet until I killed the ignition. The place was one of those roadside stops with faded neon letters and a half-lit sign that still promised cable television and vacancy in glowing red. The parking lot was empty except for 2 cars, both tucked at the far edge near the dumpsters. It gave me the odd impression I was the only guest who mattered. The office smelled faintly of stale coffee, and the night clerk barely looked up when I slid my card across the counter. His face was gray in the fluorescent light, his eyes glazed as if he'd been staring at nothing for hours. He mumbled something about checkout being at 11, pushed a key across the counter, and went back to whatever he was watching on his tiny desk television. Room 12. The hallway was narrow and lined with faded carpet that squished faintly under my shoes. The walls had once been cream, but were now closer to the color of old teeth. A door creaked somewhere down the hall and then slammed shut. My hand hesitated on the knob before I slid the key in. The lock rattled once, caught, and then gave with a tired click. Inside, the air was stale and dry. A faint chemical tang lingered in the room, like it had been sprayed with something to cover up smoke. The bedspread was patterned with abstract swirls, its edges frayed. The television sat in the corner, a heavy boxy model with a bulging screen. I tried the lock again after I closed the door. The knob turned more than it should have. It would latch, but there was too much give, as if the metal plate was loose. Not good. I jiggled it once, twice, but it wouldn't tighten. I considered going back to the clerk, but the thought of his empty stare put me off. It was one night, I told myself that. I set my bag by the chair, toed off my shoes, and sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress sagged but held me. I pulled out my phone and saw I had no service. The signal bars were flat, though I could swear I'd had a full signal in the lot. I tossed the phone onto the nightstand. I turned off the lamp, letting the room fall into darkness except for the faint orange glow seeping through the curtains from the parking lot light. That's when the television clicked. The sound was sharp in the silence, like a switch being thrown. I sat up straight, pulse quickening. The screen glowed pale blue, no channel, just that empty hum of static waiting for input. The remote was on the dresser, untouched. I exhaled, forced a chuckle, and crossed to the set. Probably some timer or old wiring. My fingers pressed the power button. The screen went black again, leaving my reflection faintly visible on the glass. I turned back to the bed. Creak. The sound came from the hallway outside, followed by slow footsteps. They passed my door, stopped, then moved on. My hand hovered over the broken lock. I held my breath, counting seconds. When silence returned, I backed away, returned to the bed, and lay down. For a while, nothing happened. I started to drift. Then the ringing came, a sharp metallic tone, not my phone, not the room phone. This was different, electronic, distant, but loud, like an alarm vibrating against glass. My eyes shot open. The television had turned itself on again, but this time it wasn't static. It was me. The camera angle was high, from the corner of the room near the ceiling, as if a lens had been fixed there. On the screen, I saw myself lying on the bed, eyes wide in the dim orange glow. I froze, my chest locked tight. I stood slowly, watching the figure on the screen do the same. My every movement mirrored. I searched the corners of the room, scanning the wallpaper, the vents, the ceiling. Nothing. No lens, no glint of glass. I crossed to the television, hands shaking, and hit the power button again. Black screen. My reflection stared back, pale and thin. I pulled the plug from the wall. Silence. Back to the bed. Back under the thin blanket. But sleep was gone. My ears strained at every sound. The hum of the vending machine outside. A siren somewhere far away. The faint vibration of pipes in the walls. At one point I closed my eyes, telling myself it was nerves, nothing more. When I opened them again, the room was glowing blue. The television, it was on. The plug was still in my hand. I swallowed hard. My knees felt weak as I stepped forward. The image on the screen was sharper now. The camera angle had changed. It was closer. It was no longer showing the whole bed. It was fixed squarely on my face. I waved a hand. The version of me on screen did the same, but with a split-second delay, like the signal was traveling through some unseen distance. I whispered, "Hello?" The figure on the screen whispered it back, half a beat late. My chest squeezed. I stumbled back against the chair. My phone was useless, no service, no way to call anyone. The door lock was broken. I thought of running, but some part of me needed to understand what was happening. My eyes darted back to the television. The camera angle had shifted again. It was behind me. I spun around, hard hammering. No one there, just the empty room. When I turned back, the screen went black, then flashed static. And then words. White letters scrolled across the noise. Stay. The sound cut in with a low hum, a vibration that crawled through my bones. I dropped the plug. It rattled against the floor. My breath came shallow, fast. The lock rattled. The door shook once, then twice. I stumbled forward, pressing my shoulder against it. Silence. I didn't move. Sweat slid down my neck. The television flared again. Now it showed the hallway outside my door, the carpet, the peeling wallpaper, the flickering overhead bulb. At first it was empty. Then, footsteps, slow, measured, approaching. The angle didn't shift, but the shadow moved closer until it filled the frame. A hand, pale and long-fingered, pressed flat against my door. The same door I was leaning against. I pushed harder. The broken lock wobbled. My whole body trembled. Then the screen went black again. Nothing. I stood there for minutes, maybe longer, barely daring to breathe. Finally, I edged back toward the bed, keeping my eyes on the screen. It stayed dark. The hallway outside was silent. When dawn crept through the curtains, pale and gray, I was still sitting upright, staring at the blank screen. I couldn't move. Couldn't even think of opening the door. And yet, when I finally forced myself up, I saw something that made me stop cold. The television's power cord was still lying on the floor, where I had dropped it hours before, unplugged.
A shortcut home became a path of whispers calling my name. I never meant to take the forest path. It was just a shortcut, one I told myself would save a few minutes before the light disappeared. The road home wound around in wide arcs, all asphalt and steady lines of streetlights. But I'd walked that 100 times. I wanted something different, something faster. The path started narrow, gravel pressed into damp earth, framed by the last glow of twilight filtering through the trees. At first, it felt almost peaceful, like stepping out of the noise of cars and into a place where I could hear my own footsteps, the crunch of stone under my shoes, the soft rhythm of my breath. But within minutes, the GPS on my phone froze. The little arrows stopped moving, stubborn against the screen no matter how far I walked. A small spin of the signal icon mocked me. Searching, searching, I lifted the phone, waved it toward the sky between branches, but the bars stayed gone. I laughed to myself. It wasn't like I was truly lost. I knew this forest hugged the edge of town. If I kept straight, I'd spill out somewhere familiar. Still, a small unease stirred. The air grew heavier as the light bled out of the sky. The trees leaned close, their shadows blurring together until the path ahead was little more than a tunnel. I slowed without meaning to, straining to catch the edges of the trail. The crunch of gravel was gone. The ground had shifted to soft soil. Each step landed almost noiselessly, and suddenly that silence pressed in. Then I heard it, a whisper, so faint I might have dismissed it as wind, if not for the rhythm. Words, syllables curling together in a voice too soft to place. I froze, listening, my breath held, chest tight. Nothing, only the distant creak of a branch in the breeze. I shook myself and walked on. It's the wind, I muttered, out loud. My own voice was a comfort, grounding in its plainness. But 10 steps later, it came again, this time behind me, a low thread of sound weaving between the trunks. I spun. No one, just layers of dark and bark, the last purple of the sky vanishing overhead. The phone was useless. I tried again, holding it out, praying for the map to flicker back. Nothing but the dim glow of the dead screen. Another whisper, closer now. I caught the faint shape of my name in it. My skin crawled. I quickened my pace. The path seemed to narrow with every yard, the soil giving way to roots that caught my shoes. My heart thudded faster, loud in my ears, drowning the smaller noises. Then, footsteps. Not mine. A slow crunch, deliberate, matching my stride but half a beat behind. I broke into a jog, forcing myself forward. My backpack thudded with each step. My breath rasped harsh in the thick air. The footsteps followed. I stopped. The sound stopped too. The silence roared in my head. Hello. My voice cracked, thin. No reply. Only another whisper, this one sharp and sudden, right by my ear. I flinched hard, nearly stumbling. But when I whipped around, there was nothing, just branches swaying. The path forked ahead, left and right, both swallowed by dark. I chose left, almost running now, feet pounding soft soil. The whispers rose with me, not one, but many, dozens of voices, overlapping, tangled, some low, some high, threading through the air like smoke. And then I heard it again, my name, clear, spoken in a voice I knew. My mother's. I stopped cold, my throat tightened. Come back, the voice said, gentle, warm, just as it had sounded when she'd called me in for dinner years ago. But my mother wasn't here. She was miles away, safe at home. My legs trembled. I didn't answer. Instead, I ran. Branches whipped at my arms. Roots grabbed at my feet. The forest closed in, the whispers chasing me in waves. A faint vibration buzzed in my pocket. My phone alive again, screen flickering. I yanked it out. A notification glowed. No signal, but beneath that, the map had shifted, showing a thin blue line curving ahead. My breath caught in relief. I followed it, clutching the phone like a compass. The path curved right, winding deeper, the whispers hissing louder. Then a new sound cut through them. A ringing, sharp, metallic, like a bell struck once and left to hum. It echoed through the trees, strange and out of place. The whispers hushed at its sound. All at once, silence fell heavy. I slowed, panting hard. My chest heaved, sweat dripped cold down my neck. The ringing faded, and in its place came footsteps again, closer, behind. I turned and caught movement, a shape between the trees, just for an instant, a darker shadow within shadows. I bolted. My lungs burned. My calves screamed. The path blurred under me, blue line glowing faint on the phone screen. The whispers surged back, urgent now. They called in other voices I knew. A friend's laugh, a teacher's stern tone, even my own voice echoing my words back at me. I couldn't think, couldn't reason, just move. The ground dipped, and suddenly the trees parted. I stumbled out into a clearing, gasping. Twilight still hung overhead, but it felt brighter here, open. For a moment, I thought I was safe. Then I heard it again, my name, clear as day, right ahead of me. And there, at the far end of the clearing, stood a figure. Not close enough to see a face, just tall, still, waiting. The whispers hushed again. My breath roared in the silence. The figure lifted a hand, slowly, beckoning. I froze. Every instinct screamed to run, but my feet wouldn't move. My chest rose and fell, ragged, and still I stared. The figure tilted its head, then it spoke. In my own voice. Come forward. The air thickened around me. My vision swam at the edges. I shook my head, backing a step. The ground creaked beneath me, wood or root shifting underfoot. The figure didn't move, just waited. And somehow, I found myself stepping forward, against my will, one step, then another, each foot heavy as stone, yet compelled. The phone buzzed violently in my hand, screen flashing. The map shifted again, blue line veering hard right, pulling away from the clearing. The vibration jolted me, snapped the haze. I tore my gaze from the figure and forced my body sideways, stumbling into the trees. A scream tore behind me, not my voice, but close, a warped echo. The whispers exploded, furious now, swirling in a storm of sound. I ran blind, crashing through brush, following the flicker of blue on the screen. My lungs begged for air, my legs numbed to fire. Then, suddenly, pavement underfoot. I staggered out of the trees onto a quiet road, bent double. Gasping, streetlights buzzed overhead, steady and real. The hum of electricity, the faint vibration of a car in the distance. Ordinary sounds that felt like salvation. I risked one glance back. The forest path stood behind me, mouth of shadow between the trunks, still, silent. But as I stared, I thought I heard one last whisper, my name, softer now, patient. Waiting. I turned away and walked fast down the road. But I couldn't shake the feeling I'd only been allowed to leave, not escaped. And some part of me knew the path was still there, waiting for me to return.